2020 U.S. Open is the subject of our next long-distance PBA Players Perspective. I'm Jeff Goodger. I'm joined by the two players from the title match, Jason Belmonte and Anthony Simonsen. And Anthony, you have a pretty good history in the U.S. Open, but this is the first time you led. And the leader of this event doesn't really have a great history in recent times. Does that matter at all to you coming into this? And how have you been so good in the U.S. Open over the years?
I don't think it really matters. I think it's one of those deals where you have to take, every event we bowl, every show you make, and really every match is just kind of one at a time. So I don't think that you can really look back. I mean, history is what it is. History changes all the time. So for me, it's just going in and trying to bowl as good of a game as possible in that particular situation.
And Jason, you're one of those guys who was the leader in the past and did not win back in 2013 with Wes Malott. What was the difference this time that finally got you where you wanted to be winning this event?
Yeah, good question, Jeff. But first, I can't believe you're going to let Anthony slide there on making a comment that history always changes. I can't believe you would allow Anthony to get away with such a comment. Now, Anthony, I need to tell you really quickly, okay? History is behind us, and once something happens, you can't change it. You can write new history as it happens. Yeah, but
improper wording. My apologies.
I want you to know, okay? You cannot change it. No, in all seriousness, though, I think I've had a relatively good US Open career. I think in the times that I've played, I think I've made the show a few times, and that one in particular against Wes when I led, that was a really difficult one to lose because, and Anthony can understand this better than most, is when you lead that tournament by so many pins, it's really hard. It's really hard to walk away with the second prize check at the end of it and not have the trophy. So to get into this position again, it really, I don't know, I kind of wanted to just make amends for some of the shows that I have had at the Open. And Anthony's young, so I didn't feel bad about beating him this time because he's got plenty of years to win it himself, and he will probably win it many times. Should
we get to the match?
Yeah, let's do this.
Let's do it.
All right, well, I'll start it off, Anthony. All right, so, I had just come off like 6 matches in a row where I'd lost, and I just got through beating Dick Allen. And I knew you were probably going to curve the lane. So I didn't want to play that same line as you, knowing that you just had that roll, that touch all week, that the back end, you never really saw the kind of craziness that I was seeing. So I wanted to play a little further right and throw it a little firmer and just hope that you would throw a couple of errant shots. But I knew coming straight out of the gate, once I saw that shot, I'm like, okay, he's pretty comfortable already. So I was kind of hoping you were going to start off slow, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, this is a center we competed in 2016 for the World Youth Championship. I told people that week, one reason I felt like I bowled so well is, obviously we bowled on 4 different patterns throughout the week, minus the 37-foot pattern. I felt like shot shapes I was able to see pretty similar. So I kind of think that just allowed me to be a little more comfortable throughout the week, leading up to the telecast.
Yeah, well, that was pretty evident all week. I mean, it was one of those kind of weeks where whenever I felt like, oh man, these pairs are getting trickier and trickier, I would walk past the scoreboard, look up, and like A. Simonsen had like 248 again. I'm like, how is he doing this? But I was in this particular match. There was a quote up on the screen 5 seconds ago how, I'd gone through some of these kind of mental lapses on television and I certainly didn't feel normal. So in this title match in particular, I tried to be very deliberate and tried to be very aware and focused and make sure that every single shot that I threw was as close to as good as I possibly could. One, I knew you were going to most likely bowl pretty well. You don't seem to be affected by the bright lights like a lot of young players do. So I wasn't expecting an easy match. I didn't expect time. I was hoping, but I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really focused in this particular match. And that shot there, that second frame, was probably the only shot I kind of wished I could have back, just because it really wasn't a great shot.
Yeah, it kind of looked like he stood up on a little bit. He got down there in a hurry. That's I think
got a little
people,
right.
People lose track of, or not even lose track. They don't really understand the how easy it is to, like you said, really look back at the end of the show and be like, wow, what happened? Like, did I really do that? That's one thing that I've actually been starting to try to focus a little bit more on. Is it's so easy to kind of get caught up in, like you said, in the bright lights and stuff like that, that you really have to, make sure you hunker down and really focus on the task at hand.
So I want to know why the two different bowling balls, right? I didn't find the lanes to be, I felt the right lane was maybe just a tad tighter down lane, but not enough to throw two different bowling balls. So what were you saying?
If I remember correctly, the topography on this pair in the front part of the lane was a little funky. And then, like you said, that lane seemed like it was a little tighter. I was kind of having the issue where on that lane, if I tried to play a little further to the right, just a couple boards, then my ball would really scoot through the front part of the lane and either miss the spot down lane. And then, during the warm-ups, when I'm trying to bring my eyes a little closer to the head pin, I had that over-under reaction. Kind of my plan all week whenever I started to lose ball reaction was just move a little bit further left, get into the lane a little bit cleaner. And then, like you said, with that lane being so tight, I'd try to use a little bit stronger ball, kind of help get it around. And as you can see, that shot is kind of making up for the last one that didn't fully get there. But I actually thought you
were gonna strike, because like on the US Open pattern, when you miss it left, it goes left. Like there's no hold. So I was like, oh, he's missed it far enough left that it's gonna strike. And then when I saw the 16, I'm like, okay. I actually had a couple of breaks earlier in the match against Dick. Dick Allen went high flush Brooklyn and left a solid 9-pin. Yeah. And then you left that 6-pin, and I'm like, oh, I guess the pins aren't falling so easily on that side of the pocket today.
They allowed you on Fox and Friends? Yeah, they did. They did not run a background check. I got a story about it too. Who's slipping the left lane?
So I felt like that shot there was like really good. I remember thinking it's got to start hooking. Start hooking now, and it was really, really late, and I was just enough on the back end to kind of go light. But on the exact same shot on the left lane, that probably 4 pins, and so it was really difficult because you just don't have a lot of room at the US Open. So when you start to change your angles, like you just said, like even a couple of boards, the ball reaction is just so different. Like just a couple of boards. So I actually was only like, I think 2 left of where I was on the right lane. And I just made sure that I didn't leak it right, but I threw it firm. Like get it going straighter through the front on this left lane, but throw it faster so it has less time to hook.
Yeah.
And
keep it online.
Exactly. And this next frame was like, it really relaxed me, because then I'm like, okay, here's the double. The ball looks great. You can make some shots now. And with that early double and you not doubling, I felt like, I had a little bit of an advantage in terms of momentum. So I wanted to carry it on.
Yeah, that left lane was definitely a lane. Obviously the last shot in the third frame is not a very good one over there. That lane, I felt like I could bowl on it all day and never really get too far away from the pocket. Like you said, this right lane I definitely think was tricky, and I noticed that early on in the show. How tricky that lane was getting.
Okay, so I'm gonna put a pin in that comment. Okay, like I'm writing a mental note. I'm gonna write it down here. There's a reason I want to ask you about what happens in the 10th frame. Well, I'll get closer to it because, we're still early in the match. But I'll come back to it. Okay, remind me in like the 7th frame to say, hey, what did you want to ask me about that right lane? So when you step up in this frame, and I'm thinking if there's no double now, then I think if I throw the next 2, it really puts you under the pump. So when I watch this ball go down the lane straight off your hand, I'm like, oh, he aced it. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, that was absolutely one of the better shots of. I think that was it's weird. Sometimes not necessarily right lane to left lane, but when I throw a shot as bad as I do on a lane where I feel like I have as much area, even just to get to the pocket, it makes me want to throw the next one that much better. And I think that was kind of a result of how bad the shot in the third frame was.
Yeah, well, now you've gone like high flush on both lanes. So, as a player on tour, you automatically just assume, all right, they're not going to miss. That's
they've got the ball reaction.
Exactly. So now that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm thinking to myself, I've got to keep going because he's got the nuts. That's what I'm thinking. And, I've already played a game on this pair, so I'm also waiting for some transition in my own bowling balls. I didn't move from the Dick Allen match. I started right where I finished. So I was thinking at some point the lanes may transition for you. And I didn't know if that was going to be good or bad for you. I just knew it's going to happen at some point.
Some particular point. You can see on that shot, as you mentioned, on that left lane, kind of moving your eyes in, throwing a little firmer. Them adding the strike track to the shows has been so cool to even just go back and watch. Being in the moment, you might have thought you didn't make as bad of a shot as you did. Then you go look at the strike track and you'll be like, well, how can I tell it is wrong?
Yeah. Yeah, the technology that Fox have put into the PBA telecast and working with Kegel to create that data has been awesome.
See, and for me, that particular shot was obviously a little ride, got there a little fast. But the move that I had made going into the fourth frame was to get a pinch softer and to try to get my hand around a little bit more. And this shot, I kind of got up and out of it pretty quickly. So it didn't allow my hand to stay on it as long as I would have liked. And after that shot, I kind of told myself that, okay, obviously you have, the momentum there, that if I'm going to try to strike 4 more times on that lane, the 6th or the 8th and the 10th frame, it's not going to be with that particular ball. So at that moment, I knew the UFO was done on the right lane and that we were going to need a few strikes to stay in the match.
Yeah, well, after that shot, I had a gut feeling that I wasn't going to see that ball down that lane again. And then there's a part of me, right, that's thinking, well, this could be really good for me, right? If he changes ball and we're halfway through the match, he's got to line up, right? So he's got to make a guess on how he's going to throw it, what position the ball will actually leave the breaking point. So I'm like, okay, if he just misses one more time on that lane, then you strike these next 2, the game's over. And I get up here, and just in the very, very final moments of me letting the ball go, I overhit it. I tried to make it, because I know it's tighter, so I overhit it, and the ball just picks up that fraction sooner. I mean, I'm there on the strike track. I'm 0.3 of a ball different at the arrows, but because I overhit it, the ball just starts to roll a little sooner.
You can see it. The video is a little fast. I mean, but before the arrows, you can kind of see it get itself online and then try to push itself back to the right.
Yeah. So, and this split had been like my nemesis all week. I left so many baby 10s, 310 baby splits, and made like 10% of them. So when I left that one, I remember thinking to myself, don't even think about it. Just get up there and throw it, because all week you've thought about it and you've missed 9 out of 10. So I just got up there and went, just throw it to the right side of the 3-pin wheel and let the ball do the rest. And inside, I was actually really happy. I'm like, I want to kind of like fist pump the crowd and everything, because that was a huge spare, because I'd missed so many that week. But so now mathematically, I'm looking and thinking and feeling, and even though I don't look at the scores, I know the scores. We bowlers know the scores. So I'm like, okay, I got to make sure I get the pin count on this frame. Like, I don't want it to be where heading into the final stretch, mathematically you would have a better chance at winning the match based on pin count. So I'd made a really good shot. Can't believe it didn't strike. I thought I absolutely nutted that one.
The 6 pin gets around really quick, and it looks like the head pin, and it might be like the 2 pin almost came back across. That's normally how, when I see messengers like that, I know that obviously it stinks to leave the wrap 10, but I know that it was about as good of a shot as I could have thrown for it to not strike.
Yeah, so now I'm kind of sitting down going, all right, well, even if he doubles now, I potentially can still step up and win the match, no matter what happens.
And in my head, I'm thinking, I'm just assuming that at some point you're probably going to double again. So at this point, I'm kind of like I'm in a strike or lose situation. Especially wanting to get the double, get a little bit of added pins going into there. Like you said, here comes the ball change. That was not necessarily random. It was the same ball I've been using all throughout the week, just not what I started with. And like you said, this is a big shot because, if you do miss, you're trying to reline up on the following shot.
Yeah, and you aced it, and it was perfect, which then I want to come back to that pin that I put in the wall here about a question. So you said earlier that the right lane you felt was trickier. It was playing a little funky, and yet you selected to finish the match on that lane, which really surprised me and made me feel pretty happy, to be honest. I'm like, oh, okay, he's going to finish on that lane. So why?
I think more or less to start the match off on a strong foot. Like I get it's the first frame, and I guess the spare there doesn't really hurt. But I think just kind of wanting to get the first shot, under my belt, whether it be a good shot or a bad shot, that shot is done. It's over with. I'm kind of settled into the show. And then once we get in there, then I can kind of get into a little more of a rhythm. So I think it was just more or less a comfort thing, as in, I feel like one of the hardest parts of the telecast is getting started. Once you throw your first shot on TV, it kind of seems that things are a little bit easier. But, getting that first one off, I just felt more comfortable on that lane.
What were you thinking after that 10 pin? Because when you let it go, again, I thought that was one of your best shots on that lane and was expecting 10 back.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of see the frustration on my face, but, take a look at the scoreboard. You still have to stay in it. There's still an opportunity. It was a good shot. It's kind of one of those ones where you throw it and you would throw it again and again and again. And, 9 out of 10 times you feel like the result would be different. But, as you know, there's many of those shots that we have in our career. So you take advantage of when you do get them, and then, just take the punch when you don't get them.
Well, I wanted to strike right here, so I didn't have to do too much in the 10th. But, like you said, I threw that pretty good. I would throw that same shot, 99 out of 100 and hope that it struck, that 99 times, and it just didn't strike that time. But again, you look at the scoreboard and it's like, okay, well, mathematically you make the spare and you can still win the match in the 10th. So I remember thinking to myself that, and I've said this a few times, the hardest strike I've ever had to throw in my life was at the World Championship to break the record for the majors against Jacob. And since then, the little motivation that I have for myself is you've already thrown the biggest strike of your life. Every strike from here on in should be easier, right? That's it. You've got the hardest one out of the way. Now you can just get up and throw this one. So I felt amazingly calm in this moment. And then the ball comes off my hand. I throw it right where I wanted to, and it just dead flushes it. And then something happened that I now have to be aware of. I had this, I've done it, right? I thought that was the winning shot, right? I was like, inside this, you've done it, you've struck. Now you can just enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
Exactly. So now I'm not 100% focused. Exactly. I'm not. So I asked for a re-rack because I'm like, I gotta get back into that and I just could not. I could not get back into it. I kept on thinking, all I need now is a spare. Like, that's it. Just get up there and throw the ball, hit the pocket, and spare what's left.
And after the first shot, this was the last thing that was in my head of, is this happening?
Well, it just wasn't as fast. I threw it softer. I wasn't paying attention to the ball speed, and it just
the slightest lack of concentration.
Oh, and it was gone. It had no chance.
In a situation like that, and this is not the spare I want to be shooting at. This is a funny spare, but my spares have been so bad at this particular deal, the 3.6, 3.6, 10, 3.6, 9, 10, basically anything that had the 3.6 in it. I was shooting at it back up. People were looking at me like, we're balling on 37 flat, and you're doing that. Like, you're risky. I'm like, you guys haven't watched me shoot this all week. It's not risky. I feel a lot more comfortable.
Something people may not know is before we even started bowling that day, you and I were talking about making this spare, right, in the practice lanes.
Yeah.
And I had told you I can't make this spare, like the 310, the 3610, the 369. I'm really struggling to make that shot. And you had said, me too. Like, I'm even shooting backup. And I practiced a couple of backup shots going, oh, well, maybe I'll do it too. And I'm like, maybe the telecast of the US Open is not the perfect time to like just throw a backup ball at a 3-6-10 combination. So when I left that, all I remember thinking to myself is, all right, if you use your plastic ball, the chances of getting 3 are pretty high, and that's going to force you to get all 3 to just tie. But if I absolutely nail it, I'll win. And if I use reactive, anything could happen. I could miss it a little to the right, it falls in the gutter. I could chop 2. So I just thought to myself, I would take that chance with the plastic. And once I let it go, I'm like, all the 310s that I missed, all the 3.6-10s I missed, and all the 3.6-9-10s I missed that week, which I make it sound like it's a lot, but in the scheme of things, it's not that many. But as a percentage of how many I made to what I left, it was really low. I was just, oh my goodness, like I've executed this better than any other spare in my entire life. And then I was just hoping, ball, take the 9 out, just curve and take the 9 out. And then it all is, and then Anthony, as they say, history was written.